Are we live? Yes, we are. How's it going, everybody? This is yours truly again for the gazillionth time. You saw my face earlier this morning to give you live stream thoughts of the news about the cancellation. That's right, the cancellation of Punisher and Jessica Jones. And now I'm back to give you my review, spoiler filled review of tonight's I Am the Night episode 4, new episode titled Matador. Now, first up, I just want to say I apologize. I was not able to give you my review of I Am the Night episode 3 last week or last Monday night. It was because I was away. I think I was at a press screening. I can't remember right now on the top of my head, but I was not at home. And then things kept happening throughout the whole week last week. Just kept me busy and busy. So I never actually got to sit down and actually do my review of episode 3. But just like with all my episode recaps and TV reviews, this contains spoilers, so might as well just give you the spoiler of what happened last week. Basically, in a nutshell, the big shocker is that George Hodell's muscle, his name is, let me get this right, Sepp, and he's played by actor Dylan Smith, who, by the way, God bless Dylan Smith, man, but he has that villain face. I would be surprised if at one point in his career that he got cast for a good man or a hero role or protagonist role, because with that face, he's gonna get typecast as the guy who plays bad guys in every project. And you know what? If I were him, I'd be probably proud of that. I mean, I would not mind it at all because it's a steady job. Why the hell not? One of my thing is if I were to become an actor my dream job would be to play Bond villain. That'd be like the coolest thing ever. Everybody wants to be James Bond. Everybody wants to be Bond girls, right? For the women at least. But me, I've always wanted, oh man, Bond villain, that's where the key's at, man. So here's to hoping for Dylan Smith to someday get to play Bond villain, because he does have the face. Or at least in this one, in I Am the Night, he plays not the lead villain, but he's the henchman. And he's the henchman to George Hodell. So last week's episode pretty much shows Sepp, or suggested that Sepp had killed Nero. Nero is this kid, he's like Howie from The Big Bang Theory season 1 through 3. Okay. Where Nero is a little bit unfiltered and he flirts and he tries to get in girls' panties. He's always horny, thinks about sex. So he makes a move on Fauna Hodell. I think it's in episode 2, I believe. And so he's kind of annoying, but just because he's annoying doesn't mean that he deserves to be killed. So it is kind of sad what happens to him. And that's pretty much the big part of episode 3, in addition to the fact that also in that episode, Fauna finally meets Jay Singletary. Jay Singletary is this reporter. As a refresher, I just want to remind you that he is a reporter, struggling reporter, also a Korean War veteran, and he's haunted by the demons of the people that he had killed in the war. And so he's a bit of an alcoholic as well, because that's how he deals with his PTSD. But he is obsessed with trying to find out the truth about George Hodell's criminalities, because Jay Singletary truly believes that George Hodell is the Black Dahlia murderer. Now, if you don't know what Black Dahlia murderer is, again, a refresher. I think her name is Elizabeth Short. She was this. I guess she was found her body chopped off in pieces. It's pretty gruesome, man. Pretty brutal. And this is real stuff. Actually happened. Excuse me. Actually happened in history. It's one of those murders that I believe to this day remain unsolved. So it's like infamous, iconic. It really it it pretty much becomes the fascination of many crime novelists out there or crime screenwriters. um, so okay, that's what happened in episode 3. In episode 4, let me give you the context, and I'll give you my thoughts about or my reaction to it, or my overall review of this episode tonight. Um, the episode starts out with Sep in George Hodell's mansion. George Hodell is about to take in a couple of patients. And this is funny because uh, I'm a big fan of actor Jefferson Mays, who plays George Hodell. But there be times, including tonight, in which he kind of plays it in a very telling way. Like if you're a villain, what I'm trying to say is that if you are a villain, you probably would go out of your way to not let people kind of know about it. Uh, but in the case of Jefferson Mays, George Hodell, it looks like he's very proud of it. Like he takes pride in like he kind of in a boastful manner kind of way. Like in tonight's episode, he would he would take pride in the fact that he beat Sep in playing chess, and then he also once he takes because there's a couple patients trying to see him. Actually, a couple, like a married couple. I think the wife is the actual patient, and so he takes the wife's hand, and then tells the husband to sit like a freaking dog. It's what's the word I'm looking for here? It's like he's driven by or consumed by the fact that he's invincible, that he has this so much power that he can tell a man to sit like a freaking dog. And he loves that. So Jefferson Mays approaches it in that manner, um, like Mr. Burns from The Simpsons. He would go like, "Excellent." Eh, I mean, if you see George Hodell a mile away, or I don't, I not want to say a mile away, a few yards away, and you see his face from a reasonable distance, um, you would probably say like, yeah, he's a bad guy. Now he's been acquitted for a trial regarding his daughter in history. This is true story. Um, Tamar Hodell accused George Hodell of sexual abuse, but was like 1950s or so, and there was not enough evidence, I suppose, and so he was never really convicted for that. Um, was he ever brought to trial for Black Dahlia? I don't think so, at least not to what I've read. Correct me if I'm wrong, but as I understand it, he was just suspected. He was a suspect, but was never really charged for it, or maybe not, or ultimately he was never really brought to trial and convicted for Black Dahlia. So we'll leave that at that. And so in this episode, it starts out with that, and then um, Jay Singletary and Fauna Hodell go to this party, this happening. Apparently, Corina, played by Connie Nielsen, um, invites them to this party that looks like Andy Warhol's New Year's Eve gathering. uh, it's full of like weird art, performance art stuff. That's just look. I got nothing against art, but art can get really freaky. Like in tonight's episode, like you'd be like, oh, I like modern of museum art, but this is a bit too much. This is not something I would see on at LACMA or MoMA in New York. So tonight's episode, there's like creepy hand wall thing going on, and then I think Karina Huntington, her gallery exhibition is herself, and so her art is that she sits down, and then she has everybody around her take turns to kind of snipe her dress off with scissors. So there'll be plenty of scissors there around her, and everybody like one by one just comes up to her and like, shik, shik, shik. And it gets to Fauna's turn, but Fauna doesn't want to do it, and then that's the end of the show. See what I'm telling you? It's just so bizarre, so odd, and so weird. Like I watched it, I'm like, really? That's art? Wow. I'll just stick to regular paintings. Thank you so much. um, and then there's a little bit of an exchange between Fauna Hodel and Corina in the dressing room. Obviously, Corina is very defensive. She doesn't really want to help um, Fauna with her search for her mother Tamar, but that doesn't stop uh, Fauna from kind of like finding the information herself. So she goes into Corina's purse and finds the address book, and it says that Tamar is in Hawaii, and so the party ends with actually violence because Seb um, is about to murder Fauna in this freaking basement, and Chris Pine's Jay Singletary intervene. He intervenes right on time, and there's a big ass knife, and it ends with freaking Jay Singletary stabbing Seb, and that's the end of Seb. And then they get rid of Seb's body out in the not in the woods, probably in the ravine. Um, and then the next day, uh, Fauna convinces Jay Singletary to, kind of like join forces. You want a story? I want to find my mom. As long as you don't include me in your story, in your expose, fine. Let's go to Hawaii and find my mom Tamar. And before they leave, Jay has to go to another party to see Corina. I think it's in George Hodel's mansion. And while at the same time, Fauna meets the mother that took care of her all these years, Jimmy Lee. She comes to Los Angeles. She's played by Golden Brooks, and I mentioned to you in my review of episode 1 of how much I love Golden Brooks. Her performance in this show is fantastic. If the Emmys this year doesn't recognize Golden Brooks, then there's something wrong with the Emmys, because she just gives her all, man, for this role, Jimmy Lee. And it shows again in this episode, her confrontation with Fauna inside that restaurant. It ends pretty badly with Jimmy Lee slapping Fauna in the face. Meanwhile, Jason Galtieri is at George Hodel's mansion, and the security tries to kick him out, but he tries to hide, and he without realizing it, he enters this empty gallery room full of paintings, artwork by George Hodel. And guess what? The artwork or the paintings depict mangled bodies, chopped off bodies, just like Elizabeth Short or the Black Dahlia's body. And the episode ends at that. Kind of, brazenly hints at you or to you that, hey, this is the moment where Jason Galtieri, it kind of clicks in his head. It's like, oh my God, George Hodel is the Black Dahlia killer. So that's a bit of a context of what happens in tonight's episode. So let me give you my thoughts. Overall, because I've seen all 6 episodes. Thank you to TNT, by the way, for granting me the screeners to all 6 episodes of this limited series. And I must confess that this is probably my least favorite episode out of the 6. Um, well, for one, you know, if Seb killed Nero, which he did, because I guess, I don't know, maybe under the direction or the order of George Hodel, maybe George Hodel gets wind of information that Nero tries to make a move on Fauna. I know, and Fauna is related to George. And it's like, hey, kill this kid, whatever. I don't know what the reason is. They never show the reason. But I would like it better if Seb did not if Seb did not get killed off this early on in the game. It'd be pretty cool if actually, that Nero's friend that hangs out with Fauna in this episode, that kind of like feels sad for Nero. He's this big black guy, very kind-hearted, but is also firm. And when he finds out, wow, the man in the Buick does this. Didn't you say that you saw a man in the Buick? So he's very firm also to Fauna. It'd be kind of nice if Sep's fate or demise happens at the hands of that guy instead of Jay Singletary. Because I feel like they have this whole thing with they bring up this Nero's death, but it never gets to come full circle. You see what I'm getting at? You have this one crime, and then they just leave it at that. Like, this is supposed to be crime drama, not necessarily. Yeah, it's a crime drama. So a crime happens, and it doesn't get resolved. It's just, I feel like they want to get rid of Seb storyline, and the way, let me put it this way, the way he dies is not warranted. It's not warranted. I just, and then Jay Singletary just like stabs him, and that's it. That's the end of Seb. I feel like we are owed more than that as audiences. I know there are only 6 episodes, and I know that he's only a henchman, but still, I get the sense that the show just want to get rid of him already, and I just don't find I don't find that to be satisfying as a viewer of this show. The next thing on my note is I can't help but draw comparisons between this and HBO's True Detective. Obviously, because both shows air during the same season right now. And I must say that the murder mystery in I Am the Night is not as intricate or is not as complex as True Detective. Whereas in True Detective, creator, showrunner, writer Nick Pizzolatto would take us through these mazes. He holds all the cards. He's not letting you see all the cards as yet, but with every turn inside the maze that you take, it reveals something more. And it feels like the characters, like Mahershala Ali and Stephen Dorff, the way they encounter each revelation seems earned, more earned at least than the way Jay Singletary and Fauna Hodel get their revelations. Do you see where I'm getting at? For example, in tonight's episode, just by chance, Fauna just reaches into Corona's purse, and then voila, finds an address book, and that happens to have Tamar's address in it, exact address. It just seems so easy for this one. and I feel like, I know it's probably not fair to compare True Detective to I Am the Night, but I'm doing it anyway. Like Mahershala's wife, played by Carmen Ejogo. She is an investigator in her own right. She's not actual detective, or she's not actual PI, but she investigates for her book. So you can probably file that under investigative journalist. And the line of questions that she has, and the way she asks those questions to the people that she's asking to, it seems so meticulous and well crafted, well thought out. Whereas Fauna's approach in asking people around her, including Corna, just seems so simplistic and basic, and like. And then she even asks Jimmy Lee, "What do you know about Tamar, my mother?" But that's the only line of questioning that she has, and she keeps like repeating herself again and again. And you can probably argue, well, Rama, you're being too hard. Fauna is a young girl. She's not she's not trying to come up with her own in cold blood, research for her next book. I get it, but it does make, like, when you have seen a show as cleverly spun, if you have seen a show as cleverly spun as True Detective, coming to watch something like I Am the Night seems like a downgrade. Not too of an extreme of a downgrade. It's still a good show overall, but it's like you're wanting more. And yet that goes to what I said earlier about not satisfying. The whole thing with the murder of Sep. Like you crave something more, but the show I Am the Night would rather play on this level of simplicity, and it doesn't want to meet you there. It doesn't want to meet your craving, and at least from my perspective. And so that's how I feel about tonight's episode. I tell you this much though, once they get to Hawaii and the final conclusion in episode 6, it gets really, really intense. Let's just put it that way. I won't spoil it for you right now. I'll save it for my review of episodes 5 and 6. So to end, I'm going to end on this note. Although this is my least favorite episode of all the 6 episodes in this limited series, I still highly recommend you go watch it. If you are into mystery, thriller, crime drama stories like this one's loosely based on Fauna Hodel's true story. I say loosely because I've never read her books. I don't know if the thing that happened in tonight's episode, where she is like Jay Singletary kills Sep, and then she helps Jay Singletary to throw away the body. That's an accessory to murder. So I don't know if Fauna Hodel, the real Fauna Hodel, who already passed away now, I don't know if she actually committed that, an accessory to murder. So it's loosely based on true story, but if you are into this kinds of mystery, thriller, crime dramas, I highly recommend you go watch it. Just don't expect it to be on the same level of intrigue that True Detective season 3 offers you. But there's a lot about I Am the Night that you can enjoy for sure. And so last note, I have this on my note. I gotta say it real quick. Back to Golden Brooks. Fantastic performance once again. When she slaps Fauna Hodel in that restaurant, holy crap, that is some shock right there. Like, what's even shocking is that she slaps him. I mean, her. She slaps her. I'm sorry. She slaps her publicly, out in the open, inside that restaurant, right? Lots of people, but nobody gasped. Nobody stopped. The music was still rolling. Everybody's still just going about their business, eating, enjoying each other's company. I was like, dude, didn't you see in that booth? That woman just slapped that little girl. really hard too. Um, in other shows, you know what would happen. Then, pow, slap. Right the second after the slap, everybody in that restaurant will become silent, and they will turn their heads and they will look in fear at what just happened, in front of them. This woman that just slapped this one girl, um, with incredible force, by the way. So that in other shows you can expect that, but in this show, in tonight's episode, it cracks me up that pow, she slaps her, and that's it. The restaurant doesn't blink an eye, man. I love that. That's so funny. All right, so thank you so much for tuning in on this long rant, my spoiler-filled review of I Am the Night, episode 4, titled Matador. There are only 2 episodes left. Again, I've already screened all 6 episodes, but I won't tell you what my thoughts are about. My thoughts are about episode 5 until next week. So stay tuned for that. And tomorrow, I'm going to give you my live stream reviews of Free Solo and The Wife. I finally got to see the documentary that is Oscar nominated this year, Free Solo. And I also finally got to see The Wife, the movie that Glenn Close is Oscar nominated for this year, and guarantee she's gonna win this year. I've seen the movie, and I have a lot of thoughts about both those films tomorrow, right here on Rama Screen YouTube channel. Thank you so much for tuning in, and as always, let's rock this.